The text arrived just after 8 in the evening, a quiet buzz against the coffee table. I expected a grocery reminder from Landon or a work notification, something ordinary. Instead, the message came from my parents. Money's tight this year, sweetheart. No Christmas gathering. I read it twice, even though the meaning was clear the first time. My mother's tone was soft, almost apologetic, the kind she used whenever she wanted me to accept something without asking too many questions. My chest tightened anyway. Landon glanced over from the sofa. Everything okay? I forced a small smile. My parents say they can't afford Christmas this year. He studied my face longer than the message deserved. Jade, they said the same thing last spring about your dad's birthday dinner. They are probably struggling again. I kept my voice even. Steady. It happens. Landon hesitated. You have been covering their mortgage for 3 years. That is nearly $2,000 every month. I know. I tried to sound calm, but my throat tightened. I do not mind helping. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I think you mind more than you admit. His words landed harder than the text. I looked away, pretending to fix the edge of a throw pillow. If I stayed silent long enough, the conversation might dissolve. But Landon wasn't the type to push. He sat back, eyes still on me, but softer. If you need to talk about it, I am here. Just do not carry this alone. I nodded, though the familiar weight settled deeper into my stomach. I had been carrying things alone for years. It was easier than disappointing people. I typed back to my parents. It is okay. I understand. We can celebrate another time. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again before a final message arrived. Thank you for being understanding, honey. Landon watched me set the phone down. You always give them the benefit of the doubt, he said quietly. They are my parents, and you are their daughter, he replied. That should matter just as much. The words lingered, gentle but sharp enough to reach the part of me I kept buried. Before bed, I opened my messages again, staring at the short conversation that had somehow left me feeling excluded from my own family. If you have ever felt the same on the outside of something you were supposed to belong to, stay with me. There's more to tell, and none of it is as simple as a canceled holiday. The next morning, I woke before Landon and lay still, trying to convince myself the tightness in my chest was only leftover fatigue. When he joined me in the kitchen, he handed me a mug of coffee and studied my face with quiet concern. You did not sleep, he said. I am fine. It came out too quickly. He set his mug down. Jade, they cancel holidays. They lean on you constantly, and you keep pretending it does not hurt. I swallowed. I help because I can. That is all. He shook his head slowly. You help because they expect you to. His voice wasn't angry, just sad. I felt something inside me pinch an old bruise touched again. After breakfast, I opened my laptop to check my accounts. Landon stood behind me long enough to see the familiar line items. $1,950, he murmured. Every month, for their mortgage. They need it to keep the house, I said softly. It would crumble without it. You make it sound like that is normal, he replied. It is not. I clicked to another page, where the school fees for Sienna's children auto-drafted. $680 for each kid this month, he added quietly. Sienna is doing her best, I said, though even I heard the thinness in my voice. Landon leaned his hands on the back of my chair. Jade, your sister has been doing her best for 10 years. Meanwhile, you are the one paying for everything. I closed the laptop a little too fast. Please. Not this morning. He stepped back, letting out a long breath. I am not trying to fight, but I cannot watch you drain yourself and pretend it is generosity. I stared at the closed laptop, remembering all the times Mom had said, Sienna has it harder, sweetheart. She just needs time. It was a script she had used so often it felt like part of our family vocabulary. My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Morning, honey. Hope you're not working too hard today." There was no mention of last night. No mention of Christmas. No hint of stress or struggle. Just a breezy note, as if everything in our family ran on warmth instead of expectation. Landon saw the message and sighed. "She always sounds so gentle," he said. "That is what makes it hard to see what is actually happening." I nodded, but my chest tightened again. I typed back something polite, something easy. I always did, when I put my phone down. Landon's voice was quiet but steady. "Jade, loving your family does not mean you have to lose yourself." His words stayed with me long after he left for work, settling into the places I had tried so hard to ignore. 3 days passed, and I convinced myself to stop thinking about the canceled holiday. I kept repeating the same line in my head. They must really be struggling this year, until it felt almost believable. On the evening of the 3rd day, after a long shift at work, I curled onto the couch and opened my phone. I meant to check an email. Instead, my thumb brushed the photo app, and the screen filled with a familiar, shared family album. A new set of images loaded. For a moment, my brain refused to connect the dots. My parents stood beside Sienna in a brightly lit living room. A tall tree glowed behind them. Ribbons, gold ornaments, plates stacked with catered food. A pyramid of gifts reaching higher than the table. My mother's smile was wide and easy. My father raised a glass of champagne. Sienna, flawless as always, leaned close to them as if the 3 of them were the only family that existed. The album note read, "Added automatically from shared devices." My breath caught, the room tilting just slightly. They had not meant for me to see these. They simply forgot to turn off the autosync? Landon walked in with 2 mugs of tea. "You look pale," he said, placing them down. "What happened?" I turned the screen toward him. He stared, his jaw tightened. His voice dropped to a low, controlled register. "They said they could not afford Christmas." "I know." He stepped back, running a hand over his face. "Jade, this is not misunderstanding. This is intentional." I kept staring at the photos. Maybe Sienna invited them last minute. "You paid their mortgage 2 days ago," he said sharply. $1,950. That is not last minute. I opened my banking app without thinking, scrolling to the recurring payment. I hovered over the cancel button. Landon watched me silently, waiting. I hit confirm. The screen flashed. Autopay canceled. My hands shook, but my voice came out steady. "They do not need my help. They never did." Landon exhaled, the tension in his shoulders loosening. "They needed the version of you who never questions anything. That version is gone." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. A notification from a group thread, my parents and Sienna. Sienna had posted a photo caption, "Best Christmas with the people who matter most." I stared at the sentence, reading it until the words blurred. I typed back a single message. "If money is tight, I will pause the $1,950 mortgage transfer entirely." I hit send. Within minutes, my phone rang. Once. Twice. Then again. The calls stacked faster than I could dismiss them. Mom, Dad, Sienna, all in a frantic loop. Landon reached over, pressed the side button, and silenced the device. "You do not owe them an explanation," he said. I set the phone face down and let the ringing fade. Somewhere deep inside me, something shifted quiet, but irreversible. By the next morning, the missed calls had stopped, replaced by silence so thick it felt staged. I tried to focus on work, but a notification from social media lit up my screen. I shouldn't have opened it. I did anyway. Sienna had posted a long status. Some people love pretending to be martyrs. They punish their own family for attention. They twist everything to make themselves look generous. Real loyalty means supporting your parents, not humiliating them. There was no name. She didn't need one. My stomach clenched as I scrolled further. Aunts, cousins, distant relatives, people who never called me unless they wanted something were chiming in. Some daughters forget who raised them. Sienna, you are such a good person for putting up with this. I always knew Jade was difficult.
I stared at the screen until the letters lost shape. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was precise. Familiar. Landon glanced over my shoulder. She posted that publicly. Yes, my voice felt thin. She knows exactly what she's doing.
I pinched the bridge of my nose. She wants the narrative first, and your parents are letting her. He sat beside me, watching me like he was waiting for me to finally see what he had seen for years. I forced myself to scroll again, not to absorb the words, but to record them. One by one, I took screenshots, comments, replies, even the likes, evidence, not emotion. Proof of how quickly my family chose convenience over truth. Landon's voice was calm. What are you going to do? I didn't answer until the last screenshot saved. Then I opened my email. To Carol Rowan. Mitchell Rowan, subject support. All financial assistance ends today. I wish you well. I clicked send. Landon leaned back. That is the first boundary I have seen you set in the entire time I have known you. It had to happen, I said quietly. It should have happened years ago. The phone stayed silent, but my inbox didn't. A message from my mother arrived within minutes. Sweetheart, this is all a misunderstanding. Sienna is under stress. You know how sensitive she is. She didn't mean to upset you. Please don't be dramatic. We can talk later. Another message followed. We love you, but you need to be patient with your sister. Landon exhaled sharply. There it is again. I closed the email without replying. Their words didn't hurt the way they used to. They only confirmed what I already knew. As I set my phone aside, a strange clarity settled over me. Not relief. Not victory. Just the first quiet moment of seeing my family without the blur of excuses I'd carried all my life. For 2 weeks. Nothing came from my parents except a few half-hearted emails about the weather. Each one pretending the Christmas photos and Sienna's public attack had never existed. The silence between the lines was louder than any apology they could have offered. Then, on a Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Not my parents, just her. Things have been tense. Your father and I do not want conflict. We only need a little help this month. Sienna and the kids are having a hard time. Could you please cover the mortgage one last time? We will make it up to you when we can. I read it 3 times. Every sentence was soft, careful, practiced. The tone she used when she wanted something without admitting she wanted it. Landon looked up from the dining table. What did she say now? I handed him the phone. His jaw clenched. She is pretending none of this happened. She's asking for help for Sienna. I murmured. He blinked slowly. Of course she is. I swallowed, the familiar ache pressing behind my ribs. Maybe they really are struggling. Jade, he said. Steady, but unyielding. You saw the photos. You saw Sienna's post. You saw the comments. They are not struggling. They are entitled. I didn't answer. It felt wrong to speak badly of them. Even after everything. That was how deep their conditioning went. Landon reached for my hand. You do not have to rescue them. Not anymore. But the message still sat on the screen, glowing like a reminder of every old role they'd assigned me. Later that afternoon, I met Zara Fletcher at our usual coffee shop. She arrived with her usual directness, sliding into the booth before I could hide my expression. You look like someone hit you with a guilt truck, she said. I handed her my phone. She read the message once and handed it back. Your mom wants you to forget everything they did as long as you keep paying. She says it is just one last time. I whispered. Zara leaned in. eyes sharp. Jade, you have spent years buying your place in a family that should have loved you without a receipt. The words pierced straight through me. I didn't flinch, but something inside me shifted. She touched my arm gently. You know what I'm saying is true. You do not need to earn their love, and you do not need to fund their lives. I stared down at the cold coffee I'd barely touched. I think I am finally starting to see it. Zara nodded. Good. Because this is where everything changes. And for the first time, the change did not feel terrifying. It felt inevitable. The call came on a quiet Tuesday morning while I was sorting through spreadsheets at my desk. I almost ignored the unknown number, but something in the back of my mind nudged me to answer. Ms. Rowan. This is Emma from Pioneer State Bank. We need to verify a loan application submitted under your name. My fingers froze above the keyboard. A loan application. Yes, she said. A personal loan for $42,000. Before we approve or deny it, we need to confirm a few details with you. My heart thudded once. Hard. I did not apply for a loan. A brief pause crackled on the line. You did not know. Her voice shifted immediately, becoming careful. In that case, Ms. Rowan, you need to know the application included your social security number, your date of birth, and an employer income range that matches your last W-2 on file. My last W-2. My throat tightened. How would anyone have that? She hesitated again. The application listed your parents' address in Spokane as the mailing address. The room around me shrank. My voice thinned. Put a hold on everything. We already have, but you will need to file a formal dispute so this does not touch your credit history. I thanked her mechanically and ended the call, though the word thank felt wrong in my mouth. When I turned, Landon was standing in the doorway. He must have heard enough to know something was very wrong. What happened? He asked. I swallowed. Someone tried to take a $42,000 loan in my name. His expression sharpened. Who? They used my tax documents. The ones I emailed to my parents last year when they needed help filing. Landon stepped closer. They would not. My silence answered him. His jaw flexed. We are calling a lawyer. Right now. We drove to a Boise law office that afternoon. Mr. Carter, a calm man with silver-rimmed glasses, reviewed the documents Emma had sent over. His face didn't show surprise, just a slow, professional disappointment. The signature on this application is a forgery, he said, sliding the papers toward us. And not a casual one. Someone attempted to replicate your registered signature shape and pressure pattern. I stared at the looping stroke of my name, painfully close to real. Can this be a mistake? No, he said firmly. This is deliberate identity theft. You need to file a fraud report with both the bank and state authorities. Landon spoke before I could. She is filing. Today. Mr. Carter nodded. Good. And Ms. Rowan, whoever did this intended to place long-term debt on your record. That is not desperation. That is planning. Those words landed with a force I felt in my spine. When we left the office, I sat in the car and dialed my father. Landon watched, tense, but silent. Dad answered on the third ring. Jade, we were wondering when you would call. I didn't bother with small talk. Did you apply for a loan using my information? A pause not of shock, but of annoyance. We needed help. Sienna and the kids are drowning. You are the stable one. We thought you would understand. My breath went cold. You used my social security number. We were going to tell you, he said quickly. Eventually. Landon reached over and squeezed my hand hard enough to ground me. I kept my voice even. You did not ask. You did not warn me. You tried to put $42,000 of debt in my name. Dad exhaled like I was the unreasonable one. Family shares, burdens. Jade, You have always carried more. You're good at it. Something inside me finally severed. I ended the call without another word. Landon whispered, I am here. Whatever comes next. I am here. I nodded, but my hands were steady now, not from calm, but from knowing the truth had nowhere left to hide. For several days after the fraud report was filed, the house felt unnaturally quiet. No messages came from my parents, no furious calls, not even one of my mother's soft, guilt-laced notes asking if I'd eaten. The silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt calculated. On the 5th morning, just after 9, the doorbell rang. Landon and I exchanged a look. Cautious, bracing, I opened the door slowly. My parents stood on the porch, looking smaller than I had ever seen them. My mother clutched her coat collar with trembling fingers. My father kept his hands buried in his pockets, like a man trying to hide his own guilt. Jade, Mom whispered, we need to talk. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me so they couldn't look past me into my life. Say what you came to say. Mom's voice cracked. We lost the house. I blinked, keeping my face still, because of the loan investigation. She nodded, tears forming. The bank froze the accounts. There were fees, holds. We could not keep up. And Sienna. My father cut in, his voice low but sharp. Sienna drained her savings trying to help us. She is drowning. Jade. I stared at him. She drained her savings helping you cover a fraud you committed against me. He flinched, just barely. We were desperate. That is not desperation. I said. That is theft. Mom reached for my arm. I stepped back, and she froze, mid-motion. We did not think you would mind, she whispered. You have always had more stability. You make good money. We thought you thought my life existed to solve yours, I said. My father's jaw tightened. We raised you. You owe us some compassion. A strange calm washed over me. I owed you honesty. I owed you respect. I paid for your mortgage for 3 years. I covered thousands of dollars in bills. I helped Sienna every time you asked. That was compassion. Mom sobbed softly. We just need help. Jade, we do not know where else to go. I looked between them, 2 people who had counted on my silence for most of my life. Behind the window. I could feel Landon watching, ready if I needed him, but letting me stand on my own. You had everything when you had my trust, I said, voice steady. That was worth more than any loan. You chose to lose it. Dad opened his mouth, but no words came. For a long moment, none of us moved. The cold air pressed between us like a wall. Finally, they turned first my mother, then my father, and walked down the steps. They didn't look back. Not once. I stayed outside until they reached the sidewalk. My hands were steady, my breathing even. Landon opened the door behind me, but he didn't speak. He just stood there, waiting. I walked inside, closed the door gently, and let the silence settle. Not heavy, not sharp, just final. The house stayed quiet after they left, but the quiet no longer felt like something pressing down on me. It felt like a room finally emptied of noise I had mistaken for love. I sat on the couch, hands folded in my lap. Landon sat beside me without saying a word. He knew silence was what I needed first. After a few minutes, my phone buzzed. I didn't rush to check it. When the second buzz came, I glanced down. Sienna. Landon saw the name flash across the screen. You do not have to answer. I know, but I tapped accept anyway. Her voice came through shaky, unfamiliar. Jade, it is me. I know. A beat of silence. I did not realize everything would go this far, she said. Mom and Dad, they did not mean for you to find out the way you did. I let her speak. She hesitated before continuing. I never wanted things to fall apart. I wish we could just go back to how we were. How we were, I repeated softly. Where I paid, and you pretended not to notice. She inhaled sharply. That is not fair. It is honest. She didn't argue this time. I am sorry, she whispered. I really am. I closed my eyes, letting the words sit for a moment, not as comfort, but as information. I hope you learn from this. Sienna, there was a fragile pause on her end. Before she could respond, I ended the call. Landon leaned forward, elbows on his knees. How do you feel? I didn't answer immediately. The truth wasn't simple, but it was solid, clear. I said finally, for the first time in a long time. He nodded, accepting that without pushing for more. The rest of the day passed in soft, steady quiet. No guilt, no panic, no expectation waiting to collapse on top of me. Just space, small, fragile, mine. 6 months passed with a kind of quiet I had never known before. Not the quiet of avoidance or tension, but the kind that settles when a storm has already taken what it came for and moved on. Landon and I had moved into a smaller home across town, a place that finally felt like ours. No shared accounts with my parents, no late-night transfers, no weight I couldn't name sitting on my chest. Just mornings where Landon hummed while brewing coffee, and I could breathe without bracing for something. One afternoon, as I was sorting mail at the counter, my phone buzzed with a message from an old family friend, Mrs. Calloway. She wrote with a gentle tone she had always used, even when the rest of the family didn't. I thought you might want to know. Your parents lost the house for good. Fees built up. The investigation made it impossible for them to catch up. Sienna quit her job a few months back. They are renting a small room together on the edge of town. I read the message twice. There was no triumph in it. No ache either. Just a quiet understanding of consequences, landing exactly where they belonged. Landon walked in, carrying a folder. Everything okay? I handed him the phone. He read the message, then looked at me with careful eyes. How do you feel? I thought about it before speaking. Not angry. Not glad. I set the phone down. Just steady. He nodded. You have come a long way. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just stopped going backward. He smiled. The soft kind he saved for moments that mattered. Either way, I am proud of you. I leaned against the counter, feeling the weight not heavy this time, just real. I am proud of me, too. There was nothing left to analyze, nothing left to fix. The past was simply the past now, no longer something I carried, only something I had survived. One evening in early spring, I sat at the dining table with my journal open in front of me. Landon was washing dishes, humming quietly, the sound steady and warm. I wrote slowly, letting each word feel earned. Peace is expensive, but worth every cent. Landon dried his hands and came over. That one sounds important. It is. I said, it's the first time I've written something that doesn't come from fear. He pulled out a chair and sat beside me. You rebuilt your life, Jade. Not everyone gets to say that. I closed the journal gently. I stopped at thinking I had to earn love. That changed everything. He reached for my hand. You chose yourself. That takes courage. I looked around our small, quiet home, the space that held no expectations, no secrets, no debts disguised as affection. Just us. Just truth. You know, I said softly, there were nights I wondered if sharing this story would make me feel exposed. Does it? He asked. No, I said. It makes me feel seen. And if someone out there hears it and realizes they can choose themselves too, then it matters. Landon nodded. Tell it. Someone needs it. The moment felt still, not heavy like a door finally closing without slamming. So if you are listening, and any part of my story mirrors yours, stay with me. You're not alone in choosing boundaries, even when it feels impossible. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that finally frees you. And if this resonated, share your thoughts. Someone else might need your voice the same